Thanks for everyone for coming to our panel discussion, Beyond the Blog for Careers in Sustainability. I'm Julie Hancher. I'm founder of Green Philly. And in 2008, I was working in a corporate job in a cube, and I had something called RecycleGate 2008, which when that happened, one of my coworkers came over and said, Julie, the recycling bins or the trash cans the recycling bins are being emptied into the trash cans. And I was like, oh my God, huge deal. What am I gonna do? So I decided to sit behind a computer and write about it, which was the most actionable thing that anyone can do, right? So almost 9 years later, I'm still writing, and thanks to all of you today, we're taking a lot of our content offline and trying to engage everyone in more discussions like this. So thank you all for coming. And I would like to introduce our four panelists who are joining us this evening. Jamie Gaudier is the Senior Director of Public Partnerships at Fairmont Park Conservancy. Previously, she was Executive Director of the Sustainable Business Network for 4 years. Her accomplishments at SBN include the SBN Strategic Plan, the Good Economy 2020 Challenge, the Good Economy Challenge, which engaged the 2015 primary election, including our current Mayor Kenny, and the expansion of the Sustainable Business Tax Credit Program. So welcome, Jamie. Megan Maltonfort is a Senior Manager of Corporate Social Responsibility, that's a lot of words, at Campbell Soup Company. She has led critical sustainability initiatives to manage resource efficiency and waste generation. Her responsibilities include developing innovative supply chain solutions for customers, setting corporate strategy and targets around sustainability. Megan has successfully reduced overall operational impacts in organizations ranging from a major hospital system to a global Fortune 500 company. So welcome, Megan. Melissa Lee, right here, is the co-founder and CEO of the Green Program. Are there any Green alumni here, by the way? Woo! They're pretty much everywhere. I was telling Melissa yesterday, I was at a Temple event, someone's like, I'm a Green alumni. So anyway, the Green Program is a short-term experiential education program that exposes our next generation's leaders to sustainable development around the world. The Green Program represents students from 470 universities in 70 countries around the world who are now employed at organizations which include SpaceX, Tesla, and NASA. So just like, some minor companies. So we can all welcome Melissa. And last but certainly not least, Dominic McGraw is the Energy Project Coordinator for the City of Philadelphia's Energy Office, part of the Office of Sustainability. In the Energy Office, he manages projects primarily for the Energy Efficiency and Sustainability Fund, which awards capital funds to municipal departments for energy efficiency or sustainability-related projects. Before working for the city, Dom worked in the information technology field. So everyone welcome Dom too. So tonight will be an open discussion. We really want to hear from everyone. We got a lot of great questions when everyone registered, so thank you for those. And we want to just have a fluid conversation about how people got into these careers, what they can teach you, and especially, unfortunately, with today's developments, how this affects the future and our current political and world climate. So, our first question will be, what inspired you to work in sustainability? Who would like to kick it off?
I actually landed in sustainability through a career path that was driven by my values. So I can't say that I started off here. I actually started my career in a very different industry. I was an accountant for DuPont. And that was my first job out of undergrad. I went to Temple, to the business school, and I majored in accounting. And I picked that major not really because I had a passion for it, but because I needed to do something. And I had a very limited scope and a very limited idea of the things that there were to do. And so I figured, accounting, I can make some money, and it's a career. And so I winded up working at DuPont for 3 years. It wasn't a bad place to work. I was making a good income. I was surrounded by my peers. I came into the company at a time where DuPont was really trying to diversify. So I actually came in with a lot of other young Black accountants. So it was a fun time, but I started to realize that it really wasn't what I wanted. Like, they all started getting married to each other and and buying these houses and these subdevelopments in Delaware and buying Land Rovers, and I just knew that it wasn't for me. And so, long story short, I winded up actually looking for graduate school programs, and I literally went through every single program to see what appealed to me, and I came across the field of city planning. And I'd never heard of it before, but it brought together so many things that were important to me, like doing something good for my city, helping low-income people, helping to promote and sort of facilitate affordable housing. And so winded up enrolling at Penn, came out of Penn, worked for an organization called LISC, Local Initiative Support Corporation, for 9 years, investing in community and economic development projects. And it was through LISC that I came across the Sustainable Business Network. And it was at a time when I was looking to move up in my career and to take on a leadership position. And SBN was amazing to me because I didn't know that I could also push forward my values around social justice and communities and economic development through the lens of business and through working with entrepreneurs. So that was very exciting to me. And it was an amazing community to work within, an amazing place to lead for 4 years. And it was through SBN that I came across the Fairmount Park Conservancy through a lot of advocacy that we actually did around the soda tax, which funded Rebuild, a major capital investment initiative in parks, recreation centers, and libraries. And so we'd done this huge advocacy campaign, and so when the Fairmount Park Conservancy came knocking, I couldn't sort of pass up the opportunity to have a role in the investment of parks, our park and recreation system at such an exciting time in the city. So long story short, my values sort of created a drive in me that made me seek out a career that meant something to me, and that's how I landed in sustainability.
So I've been passionate about the environment since I was a child. I have took every environmental class I could in high school, sort of knew that that was the path I wanted to take, but had no idea what that would look like in a career. Went to college, studied ecotourism, went to Australia, loved it, thought, oh, maybe I'll do ecotourism, then thought, what does that even mean? And then I said, oh, maybe I'll be an environmental lawyer. That sounds like a good idea. So I became a paralegal when I graduated from undergrad. Hated that. And 3 years into that, started seeing the law firm that I was working for conducting some pretty unsustainable practices, and sort of challenged them to do better, and they were not receptive to that. So at that point, that kind of sparked me to go back to school to learn how to convince companies that this is important, and that there is also a good reason from a business perspective that they should be focused on this. So I went to Duke, to their environmental school. I got my master's in environmental management, was lucky to land a job out of school in corporate sustainability, which is, through that process, kind of where I learned I wanted to be. Was feeling pretty discouraged about sort of the government situation in general when it comes to environmental protection. Clearly it's not getting any better right now, so I really felt that business was where I could make the most impact, and that could make the most impact in general. No offense to the government. It's not local government, I'm talking about federal government. So I found myself sort of magnetized, drawn to the private sector. And landed my job at VWR, which is where I was for 5.5 years. And as of yesterday, I started with Campbell Soup Company. So I will be wearing my my VWR hat, and VWR is a global distributor of laboratory supplies that none of you have heard of unless you have worked in a laboratory as a scientist. So I will be wearing that hat for the most part in our conversations today because, as I said, I'm only 2 days in with Campbell Soup. But this is clearly sort of the path that I'm on in corporate sustainability, so very fortunate to be in this space.
And I was going to say also was a failed lawyer path as well, so I'm really glad there's another person. Melissa, were you a failed lawyer, or did you have something else that led you to be sustainable?
No, I'll admit right now that I'm never going to be a lawyer, so I'm good with that. Yeah, I guess my path was definitely, I would say, accidental. A mix of what Jamie was saying as well, where different experiences have led to certain outcomes, and my journey with the Green Program started as a sophomore, 19 years old, lost, undecided student at Rutgers University, New Brunswick campus. Before then, I was always somebody who, was a good student. I was really involved on campus, in school, things like that, but was really frustrated and just a bit anxious in just a typical classroom setting. So just since I think I was 13 or 14, I started my first internship where I said, I want to be a doctor. I know I want to be a doctor. So I wasn't going to be a lawyer, but I was going to be a doctor. And that was the beginning of my journey of wanting to be a different major every month later on in college. Little did I know. But when I was in high school, I wanted to be a doctor, and I said, okay, how am I going to actually know if I want to be a doctor? Is the best way to do that is to go into a doctor's office, ask for a job, and just do it and see if I love it. So I asked my doctor, I walked into my physician's office, and I said, can I work here? And they looked at me like I was nuts. And they were like, what do you mean, can you work here? You're 14 years old. I'm a doctor. You can't just come in here and work here. And I said, I just want to watch. I just want to observe. Can I see what you're doing and just be more exposed to what's happening here? Because I'm not getting that from school, and I don't even know what that means. So one session led to another, and then one day, it was the day where I was like, this is it. I know I'm going to be a doctor because they're asking me to shadow on a procedure. And that sounded like a big deal. So I was like, okay, procedure. So I walked into the procedure, and the lady's like, okay, I'm here to get a hemorrhoid removed. And that happened, and I learned two things that day. I learned, one, what a hemorrhoid was, and two, that I didn't want to be a doctor anymore. So through that experience, that's something that learning through experience, now that I said hemorrhoid, you can't get this out of your head, but seeing is believing and knowledge is power, right? So remove the hemorrhoid with a glacier and climate change, and that's what you have with the Green Program and bringing students to the ultimate setting, being able to see where these issues are happening with sustainable development firsthand, the countries that are the best, doing the best things in the world, and putting them in the heart and guts of really what's happening around the world and being able to bring it back, that knowledge and power back to their home communities and what they can do to empower that. So in college, when I started the Green Program, it was through travel. It was a summer break. My friends and I decided to travel abroad, and when we were abroad in Costa Rica, we saw wind farms, basically, and we just decided, let's just go check it out. And we drove up to the wind farms, knocked on the door, opened the fence, jumped the fence, walked in to this wind facility, and the guy, again, looked at me. I've had so many people look at me like, how did you get here in my life? So people open the door again, same response as the doctor, what do you mean? Like, why are you here? How did you even get in? And we said, can we just look around? So that same thing happened, and the second, I didn't have a background in sustainability or anything like that. I knew of the industry. I knew more about, the moral side of it, the ethical side of that. I also saw that a lot of businesses were starting to head towards that direction. You go to the supermarket and you see all the Kellogg's boxes are like, go green, recycle. This was 2009. So think about that. And we saw like more university majors and our friends starting to study more environmental science things and being more conscious, but it wasn't a big market yet as far as I was concerned. But just seeing that wind facility and how simple the concept was of clean energy, to me, as someone with no background, was just the light bulb moment of why doesn't everybody know about this? So I think sustainability has a really amazing thing where a lot of people, most people in the world, I think, throughout their whole life is always wondering or asking, like, what is my purpose in life? And sustainability, which I find for our students, for myself, for our team, it's really like sustainability is that really good industry where if you're involved with it, you have a purpose, like immediately. It's something that's bigger than yourself, and it's something that's bigger than just your desk job and what you have to do from 9 to 5. It's something that, gets a lot of people motivated. So that was really cool to me. That was something that like made me stick with it, and more and more we have hundreds of students that are coming to study this around the world and see what's actually happening around the world to make it better. So that's definitely what motivates me, is just like it's something bigger than yourself.
I also had a similar path of not knowing where I was going and trying to test out everything. Originally, I went to school to be an audio engineer, and that didn't necessarily pan out. I realized at my first job that my boss got all the cool bands and I got all the not so cool bands. And then my second job, when I was in post-production, that my boss got to work with all the actors and semi-famous people in Philadelphia, and I got to work with not so great talent. So then I left and decided to go back to school. I went back to school for IT, and the reason I didn't go for IT originally was because I didn't want to be behind a computer screen all day. Little did I know that is like the real world that we live in now. I guess I'd say that throughout my job within IT, I always kind of like pushed for more greener initiatives, powering down the computers at night, like setting up policies, things like that. Doing things like making sure that there wasn't proper e-cycling policy, and I worked in academic institutions for a majority of my IT career. So I guess then I ended up getting a job at Penn as I was completing a master's at LaSalle in IT, and I decided there's a sustainability program here, let me check that out. I did. Like my first class, I fell in love with it. I was like, this is what I want to be doing. So I really wrapped my head around that, and then I kind of used that to make positions wherever I went, to add sustainability to my title and force that on. And then I tricked the city into thinking I was a sustainability professional, and here I am. I think that the question for the panel today led me to two aha moments, which was within my career. So I knew the one, which was when I was at Penn, but the first thinking back was when I was a teen. So I was born in Philadelphia, and I lived in Northeast Philly, and we ended up moving out to the burbs when I turned 13 in the summertime. And I moved to Bucks County, which as a teen I felt like was so far. And it was like Holland, Pennsylvania, which might have as well been Holland, the country. I was so far from all my friends. So although it's only a 20-minute ride away. And then there was a Churchville Nature Center was really close by, and I'd volunteer my summers there because I didn't really know anybody. And I think that connection to nature is what kind of brought me in to really get into it. So that's kind of why I ended up in the sustainability field.
It sounds like we have a lot of people who got into accidental environmental or sustainability fields. But as far as transitioning from those of you who maybe weren't initially in sustainability and then found your way in there, what's a challenge that you had and how did you overcome it to get more into that field?
Sure. I thought about this question when you sent it earlier. This was a question about taking up space. How do you take up space? Or okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, sorry. I don't really have an answer for this that's specific to sustainability. My answer is very particular to my situation. And so coming out of sort of the business field and going into city planning and then into and then kind of broadening into sustainability, if I have to be honest, the hardest thing for me has been being a Black woman in a space that's not very Black, and also being a mother in a space where most of the people my age don't have kids or have very young kids. I had kids before other people did. And so, being in grad school, being in a space where I was one of very few people of color, being at Penn, a space where, people have a particular level of privilege, I had to have confidence in myself. I had to know that I was smart. I had to be able to center myself and sort of believe that I'm a thoughtful person, and so if I put something out there, if I put an idea out there or a remark out there and everybody in the room doesn't necessarily gravitate to it, that's okay. And I had to learn to be okay with that. I found that when you're sort of different in a space, you don't always get the same amount of entree that other people who aren't different get. Like people have to, and I don't know, and I don't think it's intentional, but people have to warm up to you. So people didn't warm up to me until I proved I was smart and I proved I was capable. And so I had to be okay with that time period where I had to do that warm up. And it's been like that for me in the community and economic development space, and it's been like that for me in the sustainability space, but it's also gotten me to a place where I'm incredibly confident. And so any space that I walk in now, I walk in like I'm supposed to be there. And if you have a problem with that, then that's kind of on you. And so I'm appreciative of all the experiences that I've had, but yeah, the biggest transition for me has been being a person of color in a space that doesn't have very many people of color. And also sort of being a woman. I've always been very ambitious about my career goals. And so I had my first son when I was in grad school and came into the full-time working world with a young child, but still had some very real and big career ambitions. And I made a lot of sacrifices to reach the goals that I had for my career. So those have been the biggest struggles for me over time, but have also sort of deepened my strength in a lot of areas too.
I was going to say, as I met Jamie at the SBN, I can definitely say you exude a lot of confidence. I want to go a little bit different for 1 second and say I know a lot of people in the sustainability movement talk about how there is a lack of diversity. So from your perspective, what would you recommend that people can do to bring more diversity into the movement?
I think you have to broaden the people that I think it's about a couple of things. One, broadening the people that you're talking to, and also broadening the way that you're talking to people. I think that, and I don't know that I have the complete right answer, this is my opinion. I think one of the reasons that the sustainability space is that there is a lack of diversity there is that it doesn't really reach people sort of where they are a lot of times, and it's not easy for people to translate what we're talking about in terms of like local food, for example, or in terms of I don't know, knowing, not harming animals, or in terms of, caring for the environment. A lot of people are looking at their day-to-day, how they're going to get their next dollar, how they're going to take care of their kids, and those are conversations, they need to be able to relate those conversations to their lives. So if we're talking about supporting a co-op, for example, as much as I love co-ops, and everything is above a price point that they can afford, they're out of that conversation. And so I think that as a field and as an industry, we have to broaden who we're talking to. We have to look at how what we're talking to them about and make sure that it relates to their lives. I also think that there are a lot of opportunities for us in sustainability to connect to other movements and other coalitions, so that we are broadening that circle. So, for instance, I have a lot of friends that are urbanist, right? And they're always pushing for certain things, whether it be like bike lanes or things of that nature that are awesome. I think those coalitions need to connect to other coalitions and support them in that effort, and it creates more opportunities for cross conversations and kind of expanding the pool of folks that are in the movement. But those are my thoughts.
So hard to clap and have the mic. No, I think that's great, and I think we really try to, I want to say, make the messages accessible as possible too, especially when we're writing on the website or just in general for stuff like this. So thanks for that.
I will say that I think, one last thing. I really like what the Office of Sustainability is doing with GreenWorks 2.0. I really like how they've taken it sort of from the first like systems level perspective and are trying to get deeper into communities and into neighborhoods and to show people how they can be sustainable through their everyday lives. So I think there are ways that we're getting there.
And that's a perfect transition. So I know, Dom, you said you went from the IT field to sustainability. Did you either have any challenges, or do you think that was a strength to have a different background?
I think that the challenge would be just not knowing the lingo and kind of trying to pick it up as quick as possible. I brought different strengths, I think. A lot of the technology focus, I mean, especially within energy work, a lot of it is, it's very technology heavy. So I brought that strength with me, but then I had to like pick up a lot of things. Like I wasn't strong in facilities management, which a lot of energy really revolves around. So kind of just digging in and learning, and then also like kind of like, yeah, sure, and then like taking notes and then look it up later, like, so fake it till you make it kind of thing. But I think that might be the like the benefit, but yet the negative for the most part, yeah.
So mine also would bridge into being a student and a professional at the same time. I think age, on top of, you know, woman, minority, I was really naive to all of that at the time, to be honest, but age was like the main thing. A 19-year-old student on the phone with deans trying to convince them that this is a course that's going to change their students' lives that they need in their curriculum. I was correct, but did they believe me all the time? No. We got a lot of hang-ups. We got a lot of parents calling us. It was me picking up, my co-founders and our team was picking up the phone while we were in class, being as professional as we can, believing so much in our product and what we have built for these students. So age was a hard thing, but the good part of that is it passes through time and with experience. So I'm still young. A lot of students sometimes come up to me on the program and they're just like, my sister's 27, and if I knew you were the CEO of the company, I would have never come, because there's no way my sister would have run this program. So, or like started her own company. So you know, like there's still age that is a boundary with that. But at the same time, it's a benefit because we live in an age where, you know, entrepreneurship and innovation is really, we get patted on the back for that. But on top of that, you know, my background was, my pre-background, I guess, as a freshman in college and in high school and throughout college. I worked all different jobs while I was starting the green program too. So I did everything from, you guys know about my doctor history, so that happened. I also did a lot of internships. I was a theater minor, so did a lot through casting and production. I worked with organizations like VH1, MTV, Entertainment Tonight, and The Insider, as well as Style Network. And that actually was a really interesting lesson that I learned, that I was actually able to carry from one industry to another. And it's not so much industry, it's just my daily role as starting a company, you know, and maintaining a company. And a lot of what I did in casting was putting together a production, putting together a team that complements each other and keeps things interesting, to say the least. So that's something that I really carry over, and values that I carry over too. That's not something you hear every day in traditional work setting or anything like that, because they're so different. But you know, for the alumni in the room, you know that, you know, the green program to me is a production, really, is this like 10-day production abroad in Iceland, Peru, Japan, and Hawaii, and that's something that having those skill sets from a different industry of production or being on set somewhere can really be carried over. So that's a little bit non-traditional from that, but I would definitely say, yeah, age, similar things to what Jamie said too, were boundaries, you know, that I definitely crossed as I get older, as I learn more about it, as I become more educated in women in the workplace and being a minority in the workplace. But on top of that, all the benefits too that you can really tap if you're, you know, have all these like check marks on paperwork, really, that there's so many resources out there that you can really look into and maximize on. So I definitely recommend people, you know, it is something that for so many years it's been a disadvantage, but I think now, you know, a lot of government work, a lot of initiatives it's a good time to be proud of who you are as a minority or a woman and be able to really maximize and bring that into your initiative and sustainability too.
Awesome. And I know there's been a lot of discussion, kind of some hints of almost greenwashing to an extent from here to here, or at some points. And Megan, as a corporate sustainability officer, I don't know whether this is age related or just in general, but did you ever have challenges when you're trying to convince a company to do something because it's more sustainable, or, you know, whether it's just changing policy? What types of things did you come across in your role?
Constantly. Age for sure. Like I said, I started out of grad school, but everybody thought I was straight out of undergrad, and for some reason there's a very different level of respect when they think you're out of undergrad, I think, versus grad school. And once I shared, I have a master's degree, I actually know a little bit about this area. That didn't even really matter still, because I really needed to sort of just prove myself by doing. And you also mentioned you have to gain the respect of the people that you're working with, really in any role. But I think something like sustainability is really unique. For me, I was the only person working in that area of the organization. It was a brand new role for the organization. Most people didn't know what sustainability meant, didn't know how it would affect them. Actually, when I first started, people thought that by talking about efficiency, that meant reducing headcount. And so there was fear around that. I would go to our distribution centers and talk to people about how can we make your processes more efficient, and they thought that meant maybe bringing in technology to do their work for them, and that wasn't at all what we were talking about, but there was just such a miseducation around what sustainability meant in a corporate context. So first and foremost, we really had to educate people about what corporate sustainability was and how it was going to improve their time at VWR and not make it a negative. Like I said, age was a challenge, but I think pretty quickly came over that. Definitely jolting, though, within the first sort of month of my time there, sitting around with our senior executives, and I was definitely the only woman in the room, and definitely younger by 20 years than anybody in the room. So it's intimidating for sure, but once you gain the respect of those people, it is so empowering, and you do walk into a room and just sort of own it, because you feel confident that you know the material, you become the subject matter expert, even if you don't quite feel like you are. Other people sort of see you that way, and you just have to think that way. And I'll give you a quick example of kind of a typical corporate sustainability challenge, I think, for companies sort of new to this experience or journey. Within the first few months of my time at VWR, like I said, I was focused on training our employees, and I created a computer training that I was going to be launching to all of our North American employees. So I sat down with our president of North America to go over the training, which he requested, and he saw the term climate change in it. Now I thought, I'm going to come in, we're going to talk about climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, we're going to be doing lighting retrofits everywhere, solar on the roof. I mean, I was like bright-eyed and ready to go, right? And he said, we can't talk about climate change. And I said, okay. And my boss was sitting there, so I kept my mouth shut. And I said, well, how do we phrase this? And he said, I know that you believe this because it's what you read in your books, but we can't, as a company, talk about climate change. Now, I will say he has done a complete 180, and he became one of my biggest supporters, which shows over time, you have the power to change people's minds. But that is not an uncommon mentality to find in the corporate environment. So we positioned it as pollution, because everyone's comfortable talking about pollution. And that is the way that we sort of phrased it in our training. A few years later, we sort of got permission to start framing it as climate change and the impacts of climate change on our organization, and started publicly discussing it in that way. But again, just to kind of wrap it up, that is a really common challenge, I think, in the private sector, the uncomfortableness with some of this controversial topics that really shouldn't be controversial, but they are.
And now that you brought that positivity up, I'm going to bring it right back down. And if I actually didn't have a chance to completely read today's horrifying news, which is pretty much a daily occurrence in 2017. But granted, where there are a large number of people who, maybe not a large number, maybe higher up people in our country who do not believe in climate change or questioning what's happening. Where do you all see positions and opportunities for sustainable careers? Because I think a big thing of what I'm hearing is you took a huge leap of faith and started your business. What other opportunities do you think people can look for now that we're in this time?
Yeah, so if you guys don't know yet, it doesn't matter what you believe, because climate is a proven fact. Climate change is a proven fact that it's real. So it doesn't matter what they believe. But it does matter is, obviously executive decision just was put in order today. That is horrifying. But and I was talking to Jamie about this earlier too, but it really comes down to the cities. And to be honest, you guys, we're in such like a great city. You can talk more about this, but we're in such a great city that's doing such awesome things. There was a report or a action guide that was just sent out by Mayor Kenny about like, basically we're pissed off about this, what we can do in our everyday lives to just fix this or make change. But what it's going to come down to is our cities, and from there, what our individual businesses and us as residents on an individual level is going to do. In terms of jobs, I'm not concerned about that at all. It's proven already since 2015 that solar has completely taken over, like by 5-to-1 ratio of fossil fuels. Not solar specifically, solar, wind, alternative fuels, alternative energies, basically. So if you look at the facts, if you look at the numbers, this is what's happening. Our alumni are getting jobs at some of the best, most amazing companies in the world, and if it's not ones that are just for a wind power energy, it's for organizations that are having and adding sustainability in mind, right? And that's what they're going for. They're going for jobs that you might not need sustainability in the title. You can do what Dom did and like get sustainability in the title, maybe like as you start going through it. I think that's a good move and good branding for organizations too, but looking for entry points to how you can make a difference or be an entrepreneur in sustainability within certain roles is such an asset to any company, period. The world is booming of so many different jobs. I think if we follow, like as in the world follows the 2030 Paris Agreement, then we will actually be creating 24 million jobs, and all we have to do is just agree to what we promised, which is really hard right now, apparently. But the rest of the world, so outside the United States, I have the privilege of being able to see sustainability and renewable energy and a clean energy economy in all different parts of the world, and it's really, really optimistic, guys. Like, it's amazing. Iceland is 100%, almost 99% renewable, completely, except for their vehicles, and they're working on that. They're working on biofuels from rapeseed oil. We have, Japan, Fukushima. You guys know Fukushima. Fukushima, nuclear disaster. They're trying to go completely renewable by 2040. After all this devastation, we have a disaster mitigation nuclear renewable program there. And there's places like with the Paris Agreement. Last year, 47 of the poorest countries, this is during when Trump got elected, 47 of the poorest countries stepped up and said, no matter what the US does, we're committing to sustainable energy and a sustainable economy. So what that means, I think it's like an economic term, but basically what they're doing is skipping this pre-industrialization stage that the rest of us, like more developed countries, went through, and they're leapfrogging right into renewable economy. So where I stand on a global scale is really optimistic despite everything that's happening now and today. So, I think that's nice. Like I have a really good optimistic view of, if it's not here, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but it will be in the rest of the world. Asia, I think, has 60%, more than 60% of all the green jobs right now. Behind that is leading Brazil and US. So that's something to keep in mind. I mean, before we bring it back down to like how screwed we are. Yeah, I think it's, if it's not us, it's the rest of the world banding together. So it's not just Trump, basically. And yeah, I think we're capable of a lot of great things.
I guess what I'd add to that is, no matter what they say federally, it's going to come down to technology and where we're at. I mean, you're not going to bring back coal mining jobs if coal doesn't make sense anymore because it's displaced by solar, wind, natural gas. So I think they're going to be in for a rude awakening. I think you're going to see a lot of people change. I think what we really should be focusing on, and this is just, I guess, a plug for what I do, is like energy efficiency work. That I think is the real big win until the technology really does outpace everything. And I think you can. There's a lot of work that can be done all over the country. And I mean, if you're talking about putting people to work, it's definitely that. So if you have a home, you should get it audited and check it out. And there's a lot that we can do. I think to Jamie's point too, what the action plan that was mentioned does highlight from the mayor, which I really appreciated, was reaching out to individuals, right? So I think without dialogue, nothing's going to happen. So I think if we as people within sustainability can reach out to our vast networks of people and not like be harsh and bombard, but like with open dialogue, talk to people and educate them on why it's important for these things, why it's probably a good idea both for the environment and your budget if you save more energy or water, or maybe be more conservative in that regard. And talking about food access and bringing more people aware to that. I think that without the dialogue, that's where we're missing, and I think that's what we've missed for so long, that we haven't had that communication piece, and that needs to be big. So we've been trying with like our social channels to reach out to people who might not, you all are probably familiar with what to do or have a good idea, but it's other individuals who are out there that might not know. So try and reach out to them as best as possible in a positive way, and not a negative and saying like, I can't believe you don't know this. You have to start that dialogue with a little more positivity.
Cool. And I want to do 2 quick rounds of rapid fire questions before we take the questions from our lovely audience. So the first question is, what is the best piece of career advice that you've received? Do you want to start? Does someone else want to start? Okay.
So when I was at Penn, I had to do a project and interview someone who's in the sustainability field, like an alumnus. And so I reached out to somebody, and she gave me the best advice, which I kind of ignored her at first, and then ultimately found myself following it, which is, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what your job is now, what aspect it is, if you can incorporate sustainability into that regardless of what it is. And you need to take that, and that becomes your niche. And then you take that niche, and then you just roll with it, and then it becomes something. And that's kind of what I did. I didn't think I was going to be an energy professional in any regard when I was in IT or doing anything like that. But I took the IT piece, I just kept going with it, and then found myself here. So, and I couldn't be happier. So.
All right, Dom, you kind of stole mine, but it's okay, we can share it. On top of what Dom said, I would definitely recommend, I mentioned it before, but to be in sustainability doesn't mean the word sustainability or green or clean needs to be in the title at all. That's something that I think it's our responsibility to have that in our mind no matter what job we have. Any job, really, that's something that we should be contributing. The least is what we can do towards ideas and just our everyday lifestyle at the workspace, and then bringing that home too. On top of that, just for anybody that's starting off a career, or I talked to a lot of our alumni on this, and what I see is so much pressure within our generation of just finding the dream job. And I mean like out the door of university. Our alumni are trying to be a mechanical engineer for Tesla as their first job, and be Tesla, like they're Elon Musk's right-hand man right away. And that's great, and I know our alumni can do it. We already have alumni there. But in general, I definitely recommend that you gotta start somewhere, right? And it doesn't have to be the dream job. I think there's something from previous generations that we can learn in terms of they started with no, anything, like in production, and as an audio engineer, I was sweeping sand off sets till 3 a.m. and just to be able to make my way up as a casting assistant. And 2 years later, I got a full-time job offer from that. But that just goes to show there's something valuable within other generations' work ethic that we should hold on to, and that's something that it pays dividends in terms of being able to work with an organization or start somewhere where it might not be the best job in the world, but you have experience, you're contributing in some way, and you're growing personally and professionally. So that's not really, I guess, a sustainability one, but you can definitely relate that to any job that you go into while carrying sustainability mindset throughout any job that you do. It's not that hard, and I think just through conversations, it's really easy to just convince the person next to you to just be a little bit, call them out, just as a friend, you can just say things like that. And we do it in the office all the time. Someone brought a notebook in today, and we were just joking about oh my God, look at all that paper you used. And we just, made fun of it. But those little things are reminders of just, yeah, maybe we didn't need to use all that paper for something like that, but it was her class notes, so we let her go for it.
I'm going to hide my presentation notes from you then. And I'm gonna see if either of you would like to answer the question, what are resources that would help someone find a sustainable career or get into that sustainable niche they wanna get into?
Can I answer the last question real quick too? Just, I was given some advice to be politely annoying, which I have taken with me. So I've taken it with me both in keeping in touch with contacts that I've met, which is really important to just continue to follow up with people to make sure that they continue to be in your network. But also, there's a lot of barriers in sustainability, and people don't want to listen to you. People hate change. So I've also taken that advice to just keep pushing initiatives that I'm working on, even though people may not want to embrace them initially. So I just want to toss that out there. Resources. I actually found my job at VWR on jobsinsustainability.com. Oh, wow. I know, it's ridiculous. So I always plug that website because it got me my dream job, actually, out of grad school. Other resources, there's a lot of job boards in Philly. You guys run a job board, don't you? Or you're going to?
We actually are gonna announce that today.
Okay, I'll let Julie talk about that. Net Impact runs a job board. BSR, Business for Social Responsibility, runs a job board. I always recommend, if you're looking for the corporate world, Ellen Weinreb. She's like the premier corporate sustainability recruiter across the country. Connect with her on LinkedIn. She's always posting jobs. There's like 5 sustainability jobs in Philly open right now. My job at VWR is one of them. So there are quite a few job openings, at least in the business world, which is where I'm at.
I wanted to answer the last question too, if that's okay. I thought about it. Okay. So, back when I was at LISC, we were funding a pretty big community development initiative in West Philly, where we were supporting workforce development and planning and economic development. And we were working with this really wonderful consultant that was helping us to put the initiative together. Her name was Marty. And Marty was always, to me, she was always the smartest person in the room. She had so many ideas. She was so confident. I really admired her. And so as we were going through this project, she was sort of acting sort of as a mentor to me, and she would say to me, Jamie, always think about the next best thing. What do you think, you may be like in a situation where you're trying to figure out the answer to a problem. Think about everything that you learned about that particular situation, and then think about what you think the next best step is or the next best thing to do is, and then do it, right? And that allowed me to see that it allowed me to develop a level of confidence in sort of my particular place in any situation, and to figure out that most of the time, like the people that you're in the room with, they're trying to figure it out too. They're doing the next best thing. So you should do that too, and put your ideas out there. And so that was amazingly valuable for me to learn and to carry forward. On the last question about resources, I don't so much have a specific sort of website. That was so perfect, the jobs in sustainability. I don't have that. I have more of an approach that I think will get you to resources. The approach that I've used to sort of drive my career forward is to always, one, have a vision for where I want to be, and then to put myself in the places where I think I can realize that vision. So for example, I moved to University City 5 years ago, and I wanted to be involved in the community, and I wanted to sort of to be someone that was known and making an impact in the community. So the first thing I did, I figured out what my local civic was, and I joined it. And I made contributions, and then I became the president of the local civic. I saw the school that I wanted to put my kids in, and I knew I wanted to be an integral part of the school community, so I joined the fundraising committee, and I made contacts there. I saw myself in certain places, and I put myself in those places and began making making the contacts that I needed to, and showing people that I could make contributions. So not just showing up to a meeting, but every time you're at a meeting, make a contribution, offer a thought, let people know that you're someone who has ideas and that you're capable. I think the same thing, that works for sustainability as well as any other career that you want to be in. So for instance, if you want to make contacts with sustainable businesses, I'll put out a plug for SBN. Join that network, meet the folks there, let them know that you could be valuable to them. Envision it and then put yourself very intentionally in that space.
I would also add on top of that, when you're looking for jobs, especially within sustainability and green, we always hear about California, we hear about Colorado, we hear about all these sexy places that are #1 in the charts for sustainability and green, but until somebody on Brady back there on my team let us know after we graduated from school about what is really going on in Philadelphia and our own next door neighbor. We were close, we were in New Brunswick, but our next door neighbor, meanwhile, we were thinking about going to all these big Top Gun states, but really digging a little bit more into what's happening here in Philadelphia in your own neighborhood, you can uncover so many incredible things. If you haven't read the Greenworks plan, you have to read the Greenworks initiative. I was blown away. I was like, my city's doing that? That is badass. I'm staying here. This is awesome. I'm so happy to be here. So things like that is really nice to know about. I did a really quick search on Indeed, and before I got here, and I typed in sustainability, energy efficiency, I typed in something else related, energy efficiency and energy compliance, and literally less than 30 seconds of searching, I just jotted the numbers down, and there's more than 4,000 jobs in Pennsylvania that is looking within sustainable development, sustainability, energy efficiency, those keywords. So that's just to prove to you guys, you don't need to go far to make it possible. You should be able to do that right in your own neighborhood, in your own community to make it happen, and you don't have to look too far. So, with that said, our team is working on connecting local companies now with our talent pool of alumni to be able to not only retain but recruit more student and talent into the Philadelphia area too. So we look forward to working with more organizations like that. But yeah, it's right under our nose, and I was one person, take it from me, just really surprised at what was happening, but you just had to look a little bit harder. So, but I do think Philly needs to show off a little bit more. So I'm happy to help with that.
Okay, cool.
I'll make it quick. So I think to follow up with that, social media is a big one. If you're on, follow people on Twitter. LinkedIn is, I need to update mine, I know, but there was a huge help when I was looking, and getting active in the sustainability community. Though there's a lot going on, is a small group within, and we all kind of end up being at same events like this, and are great. SBN again, Impact. Net Impact. Impact PHL, Net Impact. There's a list. Ask me later. I can spout out a ton. But definitely, I think following everyone that you discover on social media is a great way to do it.
Or at Green Philly blog, obviously. Just kidding. I do want to take some audience questions and hear from all of you. So who would and it'll be pretty informal, just you can stand up and ask your question or raise your hand. Anyone like to ask a question? Perfect.
You sort of already answered this to varying degrees, but is there a sort of common skill set that you would say all sustainability professionals should have, or some sort of common overlap?
So skill sets for sustainability, who would like to start?
Again, I'm just talking from the sort of business, private sector side. I would say communication is the #1 skill, and that probably is across all sectors, especially because sustainability is a newer field to business. The ability to communicate it to various levels of people, from the warehouse to the CEO, being able to tear down that jargon and just talk in normal speak, the ability to present in front of large audiences, in front of people who don't know what you're talking about, and in front of people who do know what you're talking about. So you need to be able to wear a lot of hats, communicate to a lot of different people, there's a lot of other skills too, but I really do think communication is the #1 skill.
I would say curiosity and a problem-solving nature. Just as an example, I discovered through my work at SBN that there's a degree program at Philadelphia University. It's a strategic design MBA, and it fuses sort of traditional business thinking with the way that designers think. And the people that they're graduating are folks that are likely to go into companies and help them with sustainability approaches because they've learned how to problem solve, and they've learned how to be innovative and creative and how to communicate that too. So those would be beyond communication, curiosity, and problem solving.
Definitely agree with what they both just said. On top, of course, you're going to need, depending on the position, right? You're going to need technical skills. If you're going to work in geothermal, you're going to need a background in geothermal or drilling or something like that. Besides the skills that they said, I would also bring it so focus on your skills, but look at what you got to have something that makes you different in any job situation. So what have you done that's completely different in whether it's sustainability or energy related or anything maybe that nobody else has looked into, or with the perspective that you have, whether that's traveling abroad, getting experience abroad somewhere else, knowing that knowledge, bringing it back, being able to apply it, and have a story to tell for yourself. I think, there's a lot that a resume can tell, but the second you can power that or boost that with your own story, and you get right into that interview and you blow the rest of all the applicants away with that, that's when you as an individual were hired versus you as just a bunch of skills, if that makes sense. So if there's ways, focus on your skill set, strengthen that, but also focus on yourself as a person. I think about our alumni. Eli is the first person that I always think about. This kid is on some other level. He literally became certified squirrel suit diver. You guys know what I'm talking about? Basically my jacket. It's almost like my jacket. The squirrel suit, parachuting down, free gliding through the mountains. Literally his reason was to stand out from the rest of the applicants when he's applying to jobs. That's the kind of level that we're competing on at that point. So there's other things on top of that, and sometimes I just want to mention it because sometimes people need a reminder of be interesting, enjoy your life, and tell your story.
I would second communications, huge, and then I'd say probably just research, finding what interests you and just diving into it. So whatever that is, whether it's recycling or energy or anything, and it doesn't have to be going get your PhD in it, but kind of get an understanding of what's going on. Maybe even find your favorite companies that exist now and see what they're doing in regards to sustainability and reading their corporate sustainability reports, things like that, kind of give you an edge up.
Great.
I just had something to add to that. I know I'm not a panel member, sorry. But I worked at Solar City for 7 years, which is now a Tesla. But becoming an electrician, if you're at all interested in solar, every solar company needs 5 electricians. Everyone that I worked with in a senior management position at that company, from the time it was 200 people up to about 1,000, was a certified electrician. So it's going to increasingly be mom and pop. So if anyone wants to get in on the ground floor and is smart enough to become an electrician, for solar, it's a really pretty meaningful place to start.
So electricians, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else with another question? You guys had so many questions on the, okay, perfect.
Hi, I'm John. I work with the Environmental Defense Fund's youth engagement, political outreach. And right now, obviously, as you guys have alluded to, kind of our current political moment. But we find ourselves really trying to push back against this narrative that that any kind of environmental regulations are bad for business, and that's something that we're constantly running into. It seems really obvious to us. I know you said just ignore the people that don't believe in climate change, but really that's not an option right now. And I just was curious if any of you have any real practical advice for really engaging with those people and saying this is why sustainability measures are essential in our economy, or how we can prove to them based on your experience that it's essential for a healthy business climate.
I mean, you could just go the route of saying you look at the dollars, right? Everybody right now, a vast majority are on board with the science, let's say. And so, I mean, you can just, if our company isn't taking a position, or at least not taking a non-position, like there's going to be repercussions. I mean, you can see it now, and so many groups now are speaking out. So, and I mean, as a community, we can vote. We vote with our dollars, so, and that's a big piece of it.
Yeah, I think I would approach that in a few ways. So one, I would provide examples of businesses that are taking a sustainable approach, and talk about how those businesses have seen success, whether that be through sort of cost savings, whether it be through treating their employees well so they get more and better employees, whether that be through their reputation in the community. There are hundreds of businesses locally that I know of that are doing well by acting sustainably, and I know that's the case in other places too. The other thing I would point out is that it's baffling to me when people make this argument as well, because any approach that you take, there's a market attached to it. If you don't act sustainably, there's a market attached to that. If you do act sustainably, there's a market attached to that too. You just have to figure out what it is. So as an example, locally, our water department has gone about with Green City Clean Water. So they've decided that they're going to manage stormwater through green stormwater infrastructure. There's a whole industry attached to that. There are businesses sprouting up who are designing those GSI systems, who are providing the products, who are doing the maintenance. Anything that you do has a market consequence. So you can create a market around sustainability in the same way that that you could, I guess, or have created it around not acting sustainably. Yeah.
I would just add benchmarking against competitors is also very powerful. So some businesses will believe the science, some won't, but they all care about how they stack up against their competition. So that's something you might want to think about.
And you said you work in youth, which is similar. That's what we do with the Green Program. And most of the time, people that are in politics, but are out of touch with what's actually happening. So if you can use stories, statistics, examples of what's happening with the youth, the Green Program is an example of like the thousands of applications of students, especially after the our last election, of empowering even more students to make a decision to be, how do I train myself and take it into my own hands to be sustainably conscious, get a sustainable job, et cetera, make my impact in the world. So there's numbers behind that, and definitely just where they're studying, what they're studying, and that's insight into the future of our workforce. I'm sure you guys already have looked into things like that, but I think there's power within the numbers and power within the stories that you can tell with that.
Great. And we'll have time for one last question if someone else wants to ask anything else about careers in sustainability. In the back?
So my question is basically, what is your interpretation of certain sustainability careers, or I want to say more environmental science type careers, involve a lot of interning, a lot of volunteering, a lot of part-time seasonal temporary work? And what was your experiences in terms of how you got to where you are, and how much of it do you think people should invest in those part-time seasonal jobs if they're looking to support themselves?
So how much did you invest in part-time, seasonal, or temporary type jobs when you're trying to gain experience for your sustainable career? Does anyone? You look like you're...
I've never been in environmental science, so I think my career has developed a bit differently. I've always been able to find a 9-to-5. I will say, though, I've taken a lot of volunteer experiences and board experiences because I knew that I needed those opportunities to push my career forward. So I empathize with what you're pointing out. I wish that it were possible for all of us to kind of get to where we want to go by just working a normal sort of 40 hours a week and getting paid for it. But I do think that if you think those opportunities are key to your goals, that you should try to find a way to make them happen within reason.
I would say what I've seen in the corporate side, most of the jobs are normal full-time jobs, but because sustainability teams' budgets are normally non-existent, that requires the need for interns and sometimes also part-time workers to get the work done when you've got a smaller budget. So I've met people at companies working on sustainability that are working 15 hours a week or 20 hours a week. Most of the big companies around Philly hire summer interns, and many of them I know keep them on past the summer. So it is kind of dependent on the organization that you're looking at, but it does exist if you're willing to kind of dig in and do the research.
I just wanted to add, every time that I've had a job that I was where I was hiring someone, I always think about the people that I know. I always start with the people that have volunteered for me, that have interned for me before. I may even post it broadly, but I already have a short list of people that I'm already going to approach. So I do think those opportunities are invaluable if you can swing it.
Relationships.
Yes, definitely agreed with everything that's been said. But it's also not so much of just volunteering or just interning. I think the difference is getting a drink after work, like being able to make that extra effort to learn more about the organization and showing your intention. I think that's really hard. We get a lot of interns, and sometimes it's hard to know, do you want a job or are you just trying to have something on your resume? And they'll make it clear if they want a job, and we've hired interns in the past. Caitlin's one of them. We've hired interns in the past that have made it their intention that this is something that I love. Thank you for letting me have an opportunity here. I'd love to see what else I can explore. There's multiple times, even just alumni for us who have been clients of ours at one point that we hire afterwards because their intentions have just been so clear and just ready to rock. So, and they're the right type of personality, and we already know through that volunteer opportunity or internship or travel experience that it's the right cultural fit too, which is really important for both ends. So I highly recommend it. I know it's hard, like a lot of times, being able to put your time in that, but if you strategically invest your time in certain places and make your intentions clear, you can make big things happen.
And I would just say, and follow up, check in now and again. If it's a company you really are interested in and it's one you want to pursue, it's worth courting them,
Awesome. Well, thank you to all 4 of our panelists this evening. I hope you all learned something. I give them a round of applause. I hope you learned something or many things from their different backgrounds and what's going on in sustainability. So we will be continuing the conversation online on Green Philly. We actually have an interview with Caitlin that will be up in the upcoming weeks. Speaking of people who've made it from an internship to a full-time career, so I'll find out a little bit more about that. And also, we do cover sustainable events and other news in the city. So if you either have questions or anything else, feel free to reach out to us and connect with us online. And thank you all for coming. I'm sure the panels will be around for a few minutes, but, oh yeah. And as Megan just reminded me, so I started Green Philly, as I mentioned, from behind a computer, and I had no idea what I was doing compared to all of them. So I also did oh, that's true. Well, Melissa and I were side by side. I was probably 24 maybe when I started the blog, but I know a lot of what I did was a lot of free resources. So Philadelphia, just as a quick tip, Bar Camp is a $10 unconference that they have for technology, and I know I went to WordCamp because I'm a total WordPress nerd, truth behind the blog. And there's so many great resources, but it's so funny to me because the big reason I wanted to have this panel today is that people will email me, 1 or 2 students or professionals, and be like, I want a sustainable career. I'm like, I don't know, I just kind of faked it and made it here to an extent. And I'm kind of sustainable. But so we're really taking this further, and we are also going to be launching our job board on Green Philly in the next couple of days. So so look out for that. Hopefully you'll all find green careers on there. And if you also are an employer, have an employer that has a sustainable opportunity, we'll also have a free promotion on there too for them. So watch out for that. Thank you all again. Give yourselves a big round of applause for coming. Yeah, and thanks. Have a great evening.